I think right now the Republican Party is headed by Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy in the House. I think our elected leaders, are the ones who are in charge of the Republican Party. And I think as we look at 22 and 24, we are very much going to be focused on substance and on the issues. And I think that's where we've got to attract back the voters that we lost in 2020.
That would be the number 3 Republican in the House leadership in Orlando today, where Republicans are holding their annual legislative retreat. Remember, Liz Cheney had to fight to keep her leadership post after voting to impeach the former president. It was reported today, indeed, she is mulling her own run, perhaps in 24. Politico reports the GOP feels good about retaking the House next year, but, quote, Republicans also know the next 18 months are littered with political tripwires from internal divisions over the former president trying to influence them from Mar-a-Lago to the fringe elements in their ranks that threaten to swamp their agenda. For more, we welcome Juanita Tolliver to the broadcast, a veteran political strategist to progressive candidates and causes. And back with us again, one Matthew Dowd, founder of Country Over Party. In the past, he was chief strategist for the Bush-Cheney presidential campaign in 04. Good evening and welcome to you both. Matthew, it was the strength of your tweet that contributed greatly to your invitation tonight, and I read it to our viewers. How does one reach consensus or compromise with folks who don't believe in climate change, who don't think people should take the vaccine, who think there was widespread voter fraud, who think Biden stole the election, and who travel in conspiracy theories and falsehoods? Matthew, I would proffer an answer by going deep on the Trump base and seeing what that'll get him in 2022. Am I wrong?
No, but I think that's where the Republicans are today. I was thinking about this as I was pausing in your last segment and what this is like, and this constant insistence that somehow it's Biden's responsibility to get the Republicans on board in Washington, D.C. It's a bit like if you were going to sail a boat around the world and you're captain of that boat and you're being told to hire on people that don't believe in navigational devices and believe the world is flat. You wouldn't hire those people on the boat. And that's where we are today. But as I'll disagree with something Liz Cheney said, Liz Cheney and Mitch McConnell are not in charge of the Republican Party. And I don't even think there's any one person in charge of the Republican Party today. This is Animal House. There's no Greek council. And the fraternity is in charge of the Republican Party, and they've lost control of it.
And we all know they're already on double secret probation. So, Juanita, I have one for you. You're not going to like it as much. This is the work of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She writes today, quote, remember when Republicans lost the House in 2018 because a bunch of them distanced themselves from President Trump? Not inviting President Trump to the GOP retreat is the same stupid behavior. Funny how they don't understand a record number of votes and support of any Republican president. So a friend of mine reminded me today that even a broken clock is right twice a day. Juanita, here's the question. Could it be that she's right about this?
Brian, I'll say she's not wrong because I hesitate to agree with anything Marjorie Taylor Greene says. But I think Matt hit the nail on the head in the fact that there is still a leadership void within the Republican Party, especially when they're looking to now chart this course of substantive policy and a pivot away from Dr. Seuss and other culture wars, especially when they're still looking to fundraise off of Trump and tap into the voter base that he riled up with his cult of personality and really try to make grounds there in 2022. But I will say Marjorie Taylor Greene is not wrong that them actively avoiding Trump right now is not the best move. So when you have the twice impeached president, single term former president here, he is somebody that they fully intend to tap into. That's why we see McCarthy going back down to Mar-a-Lago. That's why we see Marjorie Taylor Greene introducing the America First Caucus. And even though that was a failed rollout, it's something that they know resonates with the GOP base and resonates with their voters because that base has been primed to really be responsive to the cult of personality.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.